This is Geeks Represent, where we talk about representation and issues that matter to us geeks. We are
Sean,
Joe,
Marshall,
and Daryl. As geeks, we enjoy all kinds of entertainment. At Geeks Represent, we especially value stories told from the perspectives of people of all kinds of races and cultures. We feel it's incredibly important not only to have these stories told with sincerity, but to tell them through accurate portrayals of people of color. This is why it's especially disheartening when instead of taking the opportunity to portray these characters as they are meant to be portrayed, they are instead miscast with white actors. So without further ado, let's talk about racebending and whitewashing in Hollywood. So geeks, first off, how do you define racebending and whitewashing?
Well, to me, racebending and whitewashing usually encompasses either casting characters of color who have been portrayed as people of color using actors not of the same race, or else changing the race of the character outright. And this has been going on for, decades, since Hollywood has been around, right? And you got the oldest examples are like Breakfast at Tiffany's with the Asian neighbor played by Mickey Rooney, a very white actor who, before he died, he actually did express regret of portraying that character because it was pretty much like a caricature of an Asian man. And in theater, there's also like the actor Jonathan Pryce, who you probably all seen from like Game of Thrones. He was like the priest, and he was the priest, and he was Keira Knightley's father in Pirates of the Caribbean. Just a very famous actor, and he played a Vietnamese or the engineer in Miss Saigon, who is a character of Vietnamese descent, and he got a Tony for it. And even recently, like a few years ago, they celebrated the 25th anniversary of Miss Saigon, and he portrayed him again, alongside the current engineer in current runs of Miss Saigon. But so it's supposed to be like an honor to him because he was good at it, and he deserved that Tony for his acting skills for sure. But it was just like, why was he cast as a Vietnamese man wearing makeup to make himself look more Asian? It was just looked really bad. Do you have anything to add to the definition?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Joe's example of like race bending, and then to add to whitewashing, I would say like it's taking a cultural story and then making it almost like colonizing it, where it changes the story where like white saviorism becomes prevalent. Like an example would be like The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, where it's like, all right, this is a pretty Asian storyline, but then like, oh, everyone had to be saved by this random white dude who happened to be in Japan at the time. Like no one else in the whole of Japan could have saved Japan. So like it gets to the point where it invalidates kind of like the people who are there in the story, like the original culture that's supposed to be displaying, by making it seems like their efforts seem like they're helpless, basically.
Isn't that exactly what they did with like, there was a movie called Great Wall. I never saw it, but like it was supposed to be a Great Wall of China, and what the lead was Matt Damon.
Yeah. And who else was in?
Willem Dafoe, right?
Anakin was in it too, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Ugh.
Yeah.
But they were also like European mercenaries, so they were like Irish guys that traveled to China.
Yeah, but like, why was that necessary?
I have no
or
idea.
like,
didn't watch it. It was very bad.
There was also another one. I think it was called Birth of the Dragon. It's on Netflix. I am not watching it at all. It's supposed to be a movie about Bruce Lee, but I remember like years when I first saw the trailer years ago, it was supposed to be about like Bruce Lee fighting like a Shaolin monk on the behest of like, the Chinese people who were like, oh, he shouldn't be teaching white people kung fu or whatever. But through the perspective of one of his white students, and they made it about him and his like love interest. And it's just like, how dare you make a story about Bruce Lee centered around this white guy? Like, what the hell? And you made the trailer very like focus on that white guy.
Yeah.
So Sean, I guess Sean, you're adding where like it's not just like, you know, just direct casting of characters, but also like changing the stories too, right?
Yeah. Changing the storyline to like fulfill some kind of like white saviorism purpose.
Yeah.
Or
even thinking like,
Eurocentric purpose.
Yeah. One part is like, like they think like, white people aren't going to be interested in this story unless it's white people involved.
Yeah.
What about you, Marshall?
I was going to bring up the Scarlett Johansson as Major in Ghost in the Shell. Just because if people have seen Ghost in the Shell on like Toonami and such, we all kind of knew that Major was of Asian descent.
It's Major Kusanagi, right?
Yeah. And she was a robot, but at the same time, like you could have chose countless Asian actresses to play Major, and you said, you know what? Let's get Scarlett Johansson. She's doing pretty well in Marvel right now. I'm like, but is that the like? Come on now. There's like so many different actors. Can't name them right now because, well, yeah. But still, they're like, you know what? Let me just choose the person who's so out of the loop. We're gonna do that. Just like they did Emma Stone as a character of Asian heritage in Aloha. And I'm like, all right, yeah. I don't mean to be that guy, but we all knew when we did Emma Stone, we did not expect her to be in Aloha as. Excuse me, what did you just say?
Her last name's Ing.
Yeah, I was like, oh, really? Come on.
Wow.
Now.
Aloha is pretty egregious too, because I mean that movie is supposed to take place in Hawaii, right? And all the Asians are background characters, whereas the main cast is like what Bradley Cooper, Bill Murray.
Yeah, and then Jonathan Krasinski, who doesn't speak one word and made probably more than half the people in the world just doing. Yeah, I'm like, does he ever speak? Not really. Okay.
Yeah. All the actual Hawaiians are just in the background, not unlike, and I know that you knew this was going to come up. Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Just because you have Asian villain and Asian background characters does not make your cast diverse, M. Night Shyamalan.
But guys, it was a twist.
Yeah, the twist wasn't you took a great material and made it suck. What a twist.
Like how dare you?
Twist was he made his own people bad people.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe I thought that would be cool, but
and this is why he's grounded for making movies.
He's still making movies.
He made
well, he got sent to his room for a little bit.
This was, it was the first one he got to write as well, right? Like he directed the rest, but this was the first movie he got to like write the script himself. I think that was the mistake to let him adapt.
Don't touch Airbend. Don't touch that. He's like, no, my name is Ong. What was that? Your name is what now? It's like I have to use fire to firebend. Huh?
Yeah, that's such a big nerf. That's such a nerf. Like when you just gotta wait for the light shit on fire.
Everything. I'm like, it should have been more fluid. Hell, Star Wars had better freaking graphics, and he just let me shoot lightning on my fingertips.
Right?
Oh, firebend. Yeah.
Let's do all these moves to do one move.
It's like firebend.
I am tentatively. What? Go ahead.
I thought Sean was about to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I feel like that's an issue of most just like live action adaptations of like stories. Is just don't mess with the script, man. It's already written there.
It's already good.
He made an extra mistake by making it very white.
Yeah.
Just like the one movie called Dragon Ball Evolution.
Yeah.
I don't know who let him out the house, but I swear to God, he's probably divorced and living alone.
Who's the director?
I made a movie. What was it? Dragon Ball? Yeah, no, get out. You're arrested.
Like that could have been so easy, man.
It could have been so easy.
15% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Just give it
that's good.
Just give it like Man of Steel like graphics or fight scenes and you're good.
I mean, seriously. You make Goku some standard white guy going to school with blue eyes and he is supposed to be one of the best fighters. Okay, first off, the kid got his ass whooped a lot.
Yeah.
And second off, really? And then what Bulma was... Who was Bulma? I just was like, Bulma? What are you?
Oh, no wonder. He also directed The One.
And Goku doesn't go to school.
Why did he have to
Dumb
make
as
it like
shit.
modern shit? Like modern high school teenage shit.
He's not
Have you
going
guys
on.
seen the story of
Jamie
the
Chung was Chi-Chi, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And then Emmy Rossum was Bulma.
Bulma, yeah.
And don't forget King Piccolo, James Marsters.
Spike. I was so excited when I heard Spike was cast. I was like, oh, you look ugly as shit, bro.
At least he had Chow Yun Fat for fucking Master Roshi, but goddamn.
He ruined his character. You know what? You know what's funny? I don't remember any of that movie. I remember being hammered watching it, and I just remember, like, it was a very unpleasant experience.
I think I got hypnotized to forget about it. It's like, just get it out of here. I'd never want to remember it.
Nah. God.
Kamehameha wave my ass.
So I'm gonna put a link in the show notes about there's an article basically about the original writer of Dragon Ball Evolution, and it's a pretty interesting story and kind of how things get messed up and transformed as a part of the process of adaptation.
Was it the producers? It's always producers, right?
I mean, long story short, they were just told, the guy was just told, write a script. Here's some of the source material. Do your best. And he had written a lot of different scripts before, but a lot of like the going to school and trying to adapt the entire first arc or first good chunk of Dragon Ball into one movie kind of came out of that and a lot of different meddling. So, and definitely, I think to get back on topic, we're going to see a lot more race bending and whitewashing as we see a lot more things adapted from other things.
Yeah,
because so many movies that are being made now are being adapted from like comics that were made in like the 60s and 70s. Mm-hmm. Where things may not have been as diverse in media and the people creating the media as they are now. So it's definitely something that we're going to be seeing. We may see more or may see less of as time goes on, depending on how good people are.
That's the only reason why I feel like it was kind of understandable, but not understandable of how like the Mandarin has been portrayed from Marvel Comics. Because if you look at the original Mandarin, that's racist as shit. He is the epitome of like the Fu Manchu, like Asian evil, like he was supposed to be a symbol of communism, basically. Yeah, right. The pointy beard and the long fingernails, and honestly, I feel like as much as I love the first Iron Man, they kind of repeat that trope with like making the terrorists and making the bad guys all like, you know, Middle Eastern, right? As like the epitome of like the current fears, right? And so I feel like that's why they've had such a hard time adapting to Mandarin, and they made the mistake of, well, that was a weird I feel like they go out of their way to be like, oh, see, we're not racist by doing like weird shit with the characters, because like in Iron Man 3 with the Mandarin, first it was Ben Kingsley, right, as the Mandarin, and you're like, oh great, so he's playing like a traditionally Asian guy, and then you find out, spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched Iron Man 3, and if you haven't, where have you been? So like Ben Kingsley, turns out he's not the real Mandarin, he's just an actor posing as the Mandarin. And then at the end of Iron Man 3, Guy Pearce, another white guy, I am the Mandarin. And it was just and like, you know, it was brought up Ghost in the Shell earlier. It wasn't just like they took an Asian character, they tried to make it not racist, like, oh, like it's a major, we're not even going to give her a last name, it could be anyone. And, you know, bodies are, you know, she's a cyborg, so she could look like whatever. And then they made the story specifically that she was a Japanese girl who got rebuilt to look like Scarlett Johansson. And they're like, see, it's not racist. It's just like, what?
Yeah.
And there is not, but at the very least, it's weird. It's just like you went out of your way to like
They
was
tried, they misstepped,
yeah.
and fell off a cliff.
I actually really like someone mentioned that, like, so basically what you're saying is if you get upgraded, you become white. So,
and I guess something that's kind of on the other side, which I'll admit I haven't seen this movie, but I don't know if any of you guys have seen the live action Attack on Titan.
oh, you mean the one sent out by the governor or like the congressman? No.
I hope by the time this episode comes out, no one remembers it.
Go on.
No, but there was live action Attack on. Oh no, there was a live action Attack on Titan movie that came out a couple years ago.
I think I remember the trailer for that. I remember the graphics looked really weird to me.
I feel like they used puppets or something.
Yeah,
I think they used some live action stuff for the Titans.
Was it good? Because at least, by using puppets, I feel like they captured the unnerving feel of the Titans, because the Titans always bothered me, and I think that was on intention.
Mm-hmm. I thought it looked cool, but
okay.
I haven't seen it all. But I just wanted to bring that up because I think they made it's either this one or the live action Full Metal Alchemist, where they kind of pushed like we're having an all Japanese cast in this movie, although most of the characters in the source material look European.
Oh, like blonded their hair. Sounds like Full Metal Alchemist, like they do with Full Metal Alchemist.
But I just remember they're in the Attack on Titan one making a lot of extra characters that weren't in the original script, like in the original manga, at least up to that point. Because I'm only up to season 1 on Attack on Titan. Don't kill me. But yeah, I just remember it kind of being a plot point of Mikasa being like the only Japanese person around, and can't really do that when the whole cast is Japanese. So
yeah, I feel like that's more because of the limits of, for lack of a better term, Japanese Hollywood. Just not low access to non-Japanese actors. So then again, I feel like that Asian media tends to be very guilty of. I mean, that laundry commercial, for God's sakes.
Yeah, I mean, non-Japanese actors exist in Japan.
They do.
I've seen some of them on Tokusatsu shows, so I know they're around. There's the one black person that's like around every couple of years that they worked out. Well, there actually have been a couple in like Super Sentai recently. Anyway, yeah, I'm just pointing it out as an example.
Yeah. Part of me wonders how much that can be helped. Like to what you're saying, what there probably is like a good, not a good, but a very decent pool of like non-Asian actors in Japan and in China and South Korea. But, either they're not being represented well, or they're not,
given the opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of like the other side, what do you think of this particular case? Like, it's not specifically whitewashing, but I'm talking about the Martian. Like, there's two cases. One is more obvious, like a character named Mindy Park, who was envisioned in the book as like Korean American, even though maybe not explicitly said, who portrayed by Mackenzie Davis. But the one I'm talking about is Chiwetel Ejiofor, who people might have seen from Serenity and from as Baron Mordo and Doctor Strange. He was cast as Vincent Kapoor in The Martian, who was supposed to be an Indian American cast with a black man. Is that under the same like kind of problem we're having? That like, or is that like because like lack of Asian casting of Asian actors, and going with non-Asian actors instead?
I'm not sure. I think you mentioned earlier that the author defended that casting choice.
He did, because I think in the end the author wanted to like represent. Well, he wanted it to be Like they're all Americans like fighting for this like goal of getting like Matt Damon's character home. So he felt like the race didn't matter, but at the same time, he's white. At the same time, like it was an opportunity to get an Indian character or Indian actor or a character of like or an actor of Indian descent into the role instead. Not that I like Chiwetel Ejiofor. I've liked him since Serenity when he was less known, but you know, still feels odd to me. And I feel like this was right before like, you know, Crazy Rich Asians, which kind of, you know, pushed Asian actors more higher up.
I feel like it kind of goes back to like what Daryl was saying earlier with like as things get adapted more from like old source materials, we will see lots of race bending in general. Kind of like what you said before too, like the author, I feel like it depends on whether or not like their race is like really critical to the identity. And we kind of like talked about this with Invincible and stuff in earlier episodes where they made like a bunch of different choices in the show. Like if it's not super tied to the identity and they're still picking minorities, it's I feel like it's not as like blatantly bad, if that makes sense.
I can see that. Yeah. And yeah, to be fair, in The Martian, their races weren't critical. I think the emphasis, like I said, was that they were all Americans.
Yeah.
I concur. There's something kind of like that happening with The Wheel of Time, because that's being adapted. Should be the month that this episode comes out. And there was some hubbub from fans. And I'll say that Cards on the Table, I'm like on book 9 or 10 of like, well, actually, I'm like more than halfway through the series of like 12 books. So
that's a lot.
Impressive. Yeah. They're long.
Are they long? Yeah, I thought each one was
very
like
long.
Thick.
It's the first one is really long, but they get kind of shorter in the middle. So like the first one, I'm listening to the audiobooks, and the first one was like 30 plus hours long, and like the one I'm on now is like 20 something. So it's they kind of, I'll go into it later. Maybe we'll have a Wheel of Time episode, because there's a lot to talk about. Oh man, there's so many times I wanted to like post that you know that meme of a person like looking at a butterfly and it's like, is this a bird? And
yeah.
I wanted to do something for like the second book of just like me going, is this feminism? There's a lot of like gender politic discussions that can go along with this book or the series. But I'm bringing it up now because a lot of the characters, well, it looks like a traditional Western fantasy story on the outset, but as the series goes on, you kind of see the world being a lot bigger and like it's a global story, and so there's a lot of people from different cultures like shown, and like it's not really explicit like if that a character is a certain race. So there's a lot of different people being cast of different that may not be white, and people are throwing a fit about it.
Of course they are.
So
of course they are.
Like there's a character named like Swan Shanche who is like is the equivalent of like the head of the Jedi Council, if you will, or something like that. A really powerful magic user or whatever. And pretty much the only thing I know about her from the books is that she's from a region that does a lot of fishing, and she worked on a fishing boat for like a couple years before joining this organization. And so it makes a lot of like fish references. And so when I see the casting as someone who's, I believe is like mixed Nigerian and I think Middle Eastern or Caucasian, I would think, okay, that's cool. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. And like, there's another character, one of the main characters named Nynaeve. I think she's played by Zoe Robbins. And like, the main like trait of hers, aside from like her being super stubborn, is that she has like a long braid that she's like super proud of, because that's like a sign of maturity in like her hometown, essentially. And that she would tug it like really hard when she gets really mad. And I saw that the actress who plays her in the series, she's black, and so she has like braids, like you see black women having braids, and not like saying someone that has more straight hair would have their braids and like long things, chunkier braids rather than like thinner braids and whatnot.
Yeah.
So people got mad because
of course they did.
People are annoyed, but she's actually described as having a darker skin tone than other people in the books. So fans don't read or pay attention.
I feel like that's such white fragility, you know? And there's so many other examples of that. Like, do you remember when like they had to play like Harry Potter and the Cursed Child or something like that, and they cast like a black woman as Hermione? And like you said, Daryl, if you pay attention to books, how's Hermione described? Brown eyes, curly bushy hair, and if I remember right, huge teeth. Those are the only descriptions. There's nothing to indicate her race at all.
Not like,
not explicitly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that, or like, you know, when they casted Anna Diop, I might probably mispronounce it, as Starfire, who's a freaking orange alien. And people were mad about that. People were mad about Idris Elba as Heimdall in the Thor movies, and he was great. Like, it's, I don't know, people are gonna get mad. They can stay mad for all I care. Like, everyone else, every other person of color has had to put up with it. You can deal with this shit.
Yeah. Like, I can almost see why someone might be mad about Heimdall, because it's supposed to be a Norse person, but it's really...
Yeah, but they're also aliens.
Yeah. So...
Yeah. Or like, actually, it was a recent one. I think God of War 2, or not God of War, God of War, I think it's called Valhalla, I think. The next God of War game that takes place in like Norway, whatever. Ragnarok, there you go. God of War. I see Marshall's all over it. He's waiting to buy it already. But at the end of the trailer, there's a black girl. That's it. She doesn't speak. She doesn't do anything, whatever. And there is so much like backlash. Like, what's a black kid doing in Norway? Or like, whatever. Just like, you don't think people traveled? You don't think like, what the hell? Why are y'all so freaking mad? Or like people calling out the latest Call of Duty game, and why do you have like black soldiers? They didn't exist. And you're like, wait, what? Or like, why do you have like female snipers? They didn't exist. Like, what? They're legendary snipers. Female, like white male nerds, basically. Which I think we talked about this in a previous episode with Bonsai Wolfburger. Is probably why he stays away from the fandoms, is because they're full of very toxic people. So, and then I can only imagine what the people are saying like Cowboy Bebop. I shit you not. I saw like someone say, I'm not racist. He doesn't look like he's that guy. Mustafa Shakir just doesn't look like Jet. Jet has a oval head. Mustafa Shakir has more of a rectangular head. And I was like, give me a fucking break, you little shit.
Like going after his oval head.
Yes.
Of all the things they'll even like nitpick. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. They're trying to nitpick without sounding racist. I think, like, shit you not, he even like pulled up like he compared the skin tones by like their RGB like code like values or whatever.
Dumb.
But he's not trying to sound racist.
And it's like, I want them to be accurate. And it's like, if you want to be accurate, just watch the original anime. People aren't going to look like their anime characters.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. while also saying like Spike, like he should look whiter like he does in an anime, even though the character was like modeled after a Japanese like crime noir character. It's like I said, people could stay fucking mad. I'm getting heated. Let's move on.
Oh man.
I mean, like, are there any other examples of whitewashing you guys want to bring up, or racebending? Actually, here's what did you think of like Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One in Doctor Strange? I know that one's a little more complicated, but I want to hear your thoughts on it. Is it like one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations? Because the Ancient One, like pretty similar to what we talked about, the Mandarin is a pretty like racist caricature of like the old ancient mystical Asian man, I guess. But so was Wong, and they updated Wong. They did Wong well. So
yeah, they could have always had him not be a stereotype.
Yeah,
but even if they wanted to not have, well, increase the amount of women in the cast, they could have cast an Asian woman.
Yeah,
but
they explained it. They had to explain they had a Celtic woman or something. It's just
an
odd choice.
Yeah, it is odd. I can see what they're trying to do, but I don't think it could have gone better. I'll say.
Yeah. I mean, probably wouldn't have been accurate. Maybe they didn't want to be like insulting because they couldn't have, I think Disney was trying to avoid having a Tibetan character because God forbid you mentioned in Chinese audiences that Tibet as a country exists. So because I think Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt have been banned from China for saying so. So, like, just a sheer mention. Hell, that can influence a lot because I did y'all see like John Cena's apology video to China for he said something about Taiwan, like praising like a Taiwanese actor or something like that, and then he had to put out an apology video saying like, I'm sorry. He said it in Mandarin too. He spoke Mandarin in it. Wow. And he was like, I apologize for my insensitivity. I'm just like, so I can see why they would not try to cast like a Tibetan character or explicitly say so. But it could have, like you said, it could have at least been an like Asian character.
Yeah, I definitely had that gripes going into watching Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
What?
Damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Yeah. Because that was a sticky situation either way.
Yeah.
Not. You had the other side of the coin too with Iron Fist, right? Because Iron Fist, the character himself, is also like a result of like, you know, white saviorism. Like you have like a white wealthy character get lost in like mystical Asian land.
And, so Batman?
Right? That's an example I didn't think of. Ra's al Ghul with Liam Neeson.
Oh shit!
True.
Ra's al Ghul's always been Middle Eastern or Asian descent, played by Liam Neeson. Like, that's messed up. He went to Asia and his master was Liam Neeson.
Oh, that was part them trying to merge two characters together. Like Henry Ducard was another character from like France.
Yeah, but it's not like they couldn't.
Also Ra's al Ghul.
But it's not like they couldn't find an actor for him. They got Ken Watanabe as the fake Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, that's true.
Can't say they didn't have any actors for it.
This is the truth.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those like M. Night Shyamalan, what a twist. He's the real Ra's al Ghul. And it's like, cool. Thanks. But
I mean, I guess
like
that's an easy covert name. No one would expect that.
I guess.
Yeah.
But like I said, I didn't realize Iron Fist was basically Batman. That's Batman Begins in that sense, but a lot shittier. So
yeah.
But Iron Fist, like there was when he got cast with a white actor who didn't even take the time to actually train properly, mind you. There was a lot of talk like it was an opportunity for him like an Asian character, because again the character stems from a lot of white saviorism, right? And they decided to cast a white actor like he's portrayed in the comics instead, and that I feel like that could be considered a wasted opportunity to update the character to have at least like, you know, Eurasian or a character of or actor of Asian descent into it. Like, it doesn't have to be like stereotypical Asian character. Could be like what they do to Shang-Chi a little bit, right? But it could also be seen. I could also see it as like a damn if you do situation where, oh, he knows kung fu, so he has to be Asian.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like isn't that like a stereotype unto itself? So Sexist martial arts is cool.
I mean, definitely. But are there any other instances where race bending would make sense or did make sense and it was okay for the story?
Yeah, I mean, I think Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm in Fantastic Four was pretty good. It was one of the few things that actually made sense in that movie.
I didn't bother watching it. The fan four stick is what you're talking about.
Yeah, because like they really made sense of like, all right, they were adopted, they were raised by so and so, and like that's why they're siblings, and that worked for the story.
Okay.
Yeah, like it didn't make like it didn't feel like off as one would expect, I guess, when people first heard about it and were outraged at Michael B. Jordan being cast as him. But yeah, watching the movie, it made sense. Another example, not quite race bending, but a good example of like adapting another culture's stories within like your own culture would be, I think, The Last Dragon.
Bruce Leroy!
Yeah. So like the story follows a very clearly African-American like lens / perspective, but they're just paying a clear homage to like Chinese kung fu movies with their character, Bruce Leroy, who clearly loves everything like Asian, and then he just tries to be like Bruce Lee. So like seeing an adaptation of a story like that like kind of makes sense because it was still very black, that movie. So it like made it like you're not trying, they weren't like really trying to show that, oh, we're trying to save Asian people or we're trying to like one up another culture. It was just like, nah, man, this is what we do. And I thought that it worked in that way in terms of like adapting.
He made being a weeb cool before weebs made it uncool.
Bruce Leroy kicked before he could walk.
That's what they said. I heard that. That's what they said. He kicked ass though.
He really did.
And then, wait, did he come out before? How old is Dragon Ball and how old is Last Dragon? Because he glowed. He went Super Saiyan at the end.
Dragon Ball.
I mean, The Last Dragon came in 1985. I don't think
it's the year Dragon Ball premiered. It was 85 or 87.
Who ripped off who?
Yeah.
What are the secret roots of Dragon Ball?
I don't think Goku could even like power up yet until like way later.
Oh, they ripped off black people. We're about to start a culture war.
Stupid.
But yeah, you know what I'm talking about, that scene where like Bruce Leroy glows up like all gold and he's like,
and shown up, yeah. They were basically Kaioken at that point, the original Kaioken.
Mm-hmm. But that was awesome. I can think of an example where it made sense was Altered Carbon, actually. Very specific to the story because for those who have never seen it, very cool. Season 1 was a great season, very cool sci-fi series. Season 2, they clearly took a budget cut. But basically the concept is like you can live forever by basically like your soul is in like a disc in the back of your skull, and when you die, it can be put in a different body. The process called resleeving. So essentially you can live forever as long as you get put into a new body. So obviously that makes sense if, say, your original body was an Asian character played by Will Yun Lee, who is supposed to be also happens to be playing the character of like Eurasian descent, and he gets resurrected as Joel Kinnaman, and a variety of other characters. Like in season 2, he's played by Anthony Mackie. In season 1, he's not only played by Joel Kinnaman and Will Yun Lee, but Byron Mann, who's also a kick-ass fighter. Actually, never mind. I shouldn't say he's a kick-ass Asian actor. I hear he actually is not very good at fighting, even though he played, I think, the original. He either played Ryu or Ken in the original Street Fighter. But anyway, so I feel like that's a very specific scenario of when it's okay to race spend, because the whole idea of the show was like your body doesn't matter as much as like your soul. So
it's like Ghost in the Shell, but done better.
Yeah,
yes.
I was like,
yes,
Ghost in the Shell where Scarlett Johansson makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I think the fact that they didn't keep it a plot twist, like they introduced it in the show from the very beginning as this is what people do. Like your body is not necessarily your original body. So versus Ghost in the Shell that like, oh, what a twist. She was Asian all along.
Yeah. Like, I feel like Ghost in the Shell differentiates because her original identity was still very important to her as she went through all these changes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think kind of like how she has to like grapple with that throughout the show.
I think another big difference though with Altered Carbon is that Joel Kinnaman plays the Takeshi Kovacs of the modern, like up to date timeline. But they did give a lot of screen time to Will Yun Lee for flashbacks and how he grew up and how he trained and all of that. So I think that's a difference too. Like they didn't, obviously Joel Kinnaman is the main Takeshi that we're focused on, but it's not like Will Yun Lee only showed up, like his Asian self only showed up for like one episode. It actually was like throughout the series. He was actually portrayed throughout the series. So no opportunity was taken away from him. They both got screen time, even if it wasn't equal. It was still like sizable. Why are you, Marshall? Think of any decent examples of like where the race spending actually like made sense?
Only one I can come to mind is like 47 Ronin with Keanu Reeves, considering he was supposed to be half European and a Ronin.
Definitely makes sense for Keanu Reeves considering he's of Asian descent himself.
Mm-hmm. It was a good movie though. Not a lot of people saw it, but I thought it was pretty good. I was like, Keanu Reeves, you don't disappoint me, so I'm okay with this.
I think that was the era when he started making a lot of weird, like not terrible movies, but kind of like obscure. Because I think he did also like Master of Tai Chi at the time.
Yeah, he's just been acting to act.
Yeah, he does it for fun.
Paycheck.
Yeah.
So one example that I think, I'm not even sure if it counts as race bending, but at least skin tone bending, I guess. Zazie Beetz as Domino in Deadpool 2. Because, like, we never see, as far as I know, we haven't seen the Domino character in the comics pre-mutation. But, like, as her name implies, she has, like, pure, like, chalky white skin and, like, a single black dot over her eye in the comics. Mm-hmm. And Zazie Beetz, mixed actress, and she has darker skin and, like, a white spot in her eye. And, like, she was awesome. She was cool. And as I said before, people got mad because a black woman does something. So that kind of sums up a lot of these issues. But, yeah, she looked dope. She was a fun character to watch on screen.
Look, that's not a very cinematic power. Yes, it is. She proved it, killing everyone else.
Responsible. Was she responsible? Well, she's involved in one of the greatest scenes in cinema, which was the skydiving parachuting scene.
Yeah.
Because
she killed everyone else, man. She took on her luck.
I mean, it's
Which
one
is a
of the
great
things that I wish
interpretation
I
of
could.
power. Go ahead.
It's one of the things I wish I could go and watch in theaters for the first time again because it was so good.
Yeah.
But
Especially Vanisher scene.
yeah,
It's like, that's not Brad Pitt.
oh man,
I mean, for anyone who's like, oh, she should be white, just be like, they did. Sassy Beats is half white, right? There you go.
there you go.
Unless you subscribe to the, what is it called? The one drop rule. Which I feel like is where it's stemming from, that ignorance.
I was going to say that reminded me that Halle Berry as Catwoman.
Yeah, but to be fair, similar to what they're doing now with Batwoman, she's playing a different character, like taking on the Catwoman name, right? Wasn't her name like Patience something? Also, to be fair, I never saw that movie because it got a Razzie, right? So I'm like, that's how bad it was. So
yeah, that one, I think it was done well, similar to Sassy Beats.
Yeah,
I'm also very biased as a Halle Berry fan.
That's fair. Did you see her last? Did you see her like Instagram or her last tweet or whatever? It was I think it was by Saweetie, right? Saweetie was dressed up like Catwoman for Halloween, and then she's twerking, and then Halle Berry shows up, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, I'm just trying to make some paper," and Halle Berry's like, "Same." And I love that despite, I mean, it speaks to her character when she accepts, few people go to the Golden Raspberries and actually accept the bad movie awards in person, and she did. So I'm glad she owns up that it was a bad movie. She said she had fun making it, and she said that's all she really cared about. And I can respect that. So, and she made money.
You haven't seen the amazing basketball scene?
Oh, man.
I've seen clips of it from Honest trailers, and I was like, this looks like it rivals the Daredevil scene between Ben Affleck and Jennifer Gardner.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Why do they keep doing that?
You gotta have a fun playground scene, man, with kids like cheering
DC
on.
was going through some tough times back then.
Oh man,
Dude, that's funny though.
Shoot.
But I guess that kind of like goes more along with like how they like also introduce like Miles Morales and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
So like that's always a cool thing where you see it being incorporated into the story. So it makes sense. It's a Racebending that would make sense, or rather it has its own origin story, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's supported.
With like new characters, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, people make that argument. Like, why do you introduce new characters instead of like changing the race of older characters? I mean, why not both?
yeah.
Because their background experiences are still valid, and we get to see that when they show the new characters too, and that's nice to see always.
Mm-hmm.
It is nice to see. To be fair, there are some instances where it does play off as like kind of tokenism, or I think we said before, like using, for example, black as an aesthetic, or to make it edgier. I'm thinking specifically of like how they tried to make a black Wally West initially, or the Flash, or Kid Flash, and you know, like I said, they didn't think a lot about his character. They just kind of checked off all the boxes of what does a modern black kid go through? Like what is it? Like broken home, absentee father, with kid with an attitude and a criminal record, versus actually having like a very well fleshed out like black character, like say Miles Morales, like you said, or who has actually like a complex like storyline, or like Static, right? Or
don't forget Cloak from Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah. You know what? That was actually reversed, actually. Like not their characters, like, but in the comics, Cloak was the one who grew up on the streets, and Dagger was the one who was like coming from a privileged background as a blonde white girl. But they actually like reversed it.
Yeah, and they were all into drugs too. That's how they got their powers. Versus a random night and the exploding thing.
Yeah. But I did appreciate that they kind of reversed it a little bit, kind of made it so like, hey, this happens too, not just, not every black comic book character needs to be from the streets or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I forgot about that show. It was a good show.
Is it canceled? Is it done?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 seasons, and they did with the Runaways, which had they did a pretty good typecasting because they chose the main leader, who was supposedly in the comics was an African American teen with a genius level IQ, with a bushy ass hair. And boom, they got somebody like that.
That's what they gave you.
They literally were like, "Yo, we gonna get it." Like, I think everyone from the Runaways was typecasted correctly based off the comics. Even the sorcerer / nanomachine chick, her parents were evil scientists, but her mother was of Asian descent, and so was her father. And then, lo and behold, she is too. I was like, yay. That show was...
I was going to say, Marvel TV seemed to learn a lot from Generation X back in the day when they casted a white girl as Jubilee.
Oh,
that's weird.
Jubilee with the most useless powers in the world. I make fireworks. All right.
Jubilee is classic. She blows shit up.
Classic, no, she doesn't. She makes some cheap ass fireworks. You got her on the corner from Kmart. All right.
They're hot plasma.
She got fired on X-Men. Okay.
That's true. She did get depowered after M Day, and then
she got fired by Professor X. Along with Iceman.
Then she got turned into a vampire. That was weird too. I don't know what's going on with Jubilee now. Anyway,
she's a single mom now.
She's a what? Since when? See, I haven't caught up. I lost interest.
A little bit after she got turned into a vampire.
And then she get turned back again, or does she have a little vampire baby?
I don't know. I haven't seen her in a while.
Okay,
I'll just say that.
Damn, maybe Marshall's right.
Although, I guess I will bring up, I think on Runaways, you just remind me about Molly. And 1 second.
Is Molly she's the one with super strength? Or no, is she the one who talks to her dinosaur?
That's her sister. Her sister talks to the raptor.
Yeah.
But the youngest one, she has super strength and cat-like eyes.
She wasn't always Hispanic, right?
No.
Actually,
in the comics.
She was, I believe. Let me see. Yeah, Molly Hayes, she's she is actually of Hispanic descent. Her adopted sister, Gertrude, is not.
Okay.
Yeah, because they were adopted because their parents are the mad scientists who created the raptor, but those two were adopted because their actual parents died in a freak accident, and they're like, "Hey, since we're evil scientists, how about you watch my kids?" All right, bet, cool. So,
gotcha. I need to catch up on Runaways. I fell off of it.
It just got a little, I don't know. Alex, I thought, I didn't read the comics, but then I read the comics and I was looking at the show and I'm like, I feel such anger for...
Are you talking about the leader?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why?
I know what you're talking about.
No.
Because you can't be a genius without being evil.
I'm like, this motherfucker got sent to hell.
Because he was evil.
And I'm like, oh no, you're supposed to be a good dude and you're literally trying to steal all your friends' powers. I'm like, yo, Cloak, take care of this boy. Put him in the fucking bookcase.
He was the ultimate incel, man. He was jealous of everyone else.
Of course he was.
Oh, man.
I mean, hell, his girlfriend went with his best friend's ex-girlfriend. So he's like, yo, really? Oh, damn. Oh, damn. But yeah.
Oh, well.
C'est la vie.
So, given all that, what's everyone's opinion on casting people of mixed heritage in roles that could be argued aren't mixed?
I mean, you brought up Zazie Beetz, like she is of mixed heritage. Like I said, for people who want to complain that, they should have gone with a white actress to play Domino, and like technically they did. So shut it. But I do recall like some complex conversations regarding like Henry Golding and Crazy Rich Asians. Like a lot of people see Crazy Rich Asians as like a big milestone for, you know, Asian people, like such a big blockbuster movie with such a huge Asian cast, right? But meant for like American audiences. People were a little some people were a little peeved, like someone of mixed heritage like Henry Golding was playing the Asian lead. But that being said, when they first cast him, he was living in Malaysia since he was 21, and that's where he was born and raised. That's where he was raised, right? Until he was like 8, and then that's where he basically lived. He's pretty much Malaysian, like, you know. So, and arguably more so than maybe like a British actor or American actor they could have found, right? So,
I mean, I think it's nice to show the variety and range of what a culture could look like.
mm-hmm.
Like, shit, I have a lot of like half Asian, half white cousins, but they are Asian. I consider them both like,
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna make them feel like they're less white or less Asian because they're mixed. Nah, they got both going on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool to see representation like that for sure. Because I think the main criteria for Crazy Rich Asians were you were fucking rich in Malaysia.
But yeah, I see. I think that's a good way of looking at it. Like people with mixed heritage, they're not. I think the language is like, oh, you're half Asian, but that makes it somehow, you know, translates to you're less Asian, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember feeling the same way for like, you know, when I first started listening to Linkin Park, right, with Mike Shinoda as the MC, and like it didn't matter to me that he was like half white. Like it still was really cool seeing like an Asian guy in a rock band on like a top 40 on a top 10 or top 40 rock band, right? And since then I, you know, listen to his interviews about like how he grew up. Like, you know, the Asian kids didn't think he was Asian enough. The white kids, you know, thought he wasn't white enough. So I don't like the argument that like, you know, if you're half, then you're less than, right?
Yeah. I mean, we always say that representation is important, and representation of mixed people is also important to see for people. So, yeah, nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like there was a moment. Does anyone remember watching Spider-Man: Homecoming? Did you feel like I did when I was like, oh shoot, my racism took control, like with the twist with Vulture being Liz Allen's father? And I was like, why is that so surprising? That like it's surprising that, you know, your girlfriend's dad is a supervillain. But it's just like they kind of like played on like expectations a little bit. That it was a twist coming reinforced by your own like, you know, biases.
Yeah. I mean,
does that make sense?
Either way, if you given the movie that you've watched up to that point, I don't think there was any indication of like who her dad was, because I don't think I ever came up with this conversation.
No indication of who her dad was, but it was definitely an indication that he was doing everything for his family, and it included a kid, which is kind of like Chekhov's gun, right? Like his kid was brought up multiple times. How come we haven't seen his kid up to this point?
Fair.
And the clue that like she would have been the same age that Peter would have been during the Battle of New York.
Did not catch that.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I'll admit.
I mean, there's been a 5-year blip.
Man, yeah. I was about to say COVID sucks, but that's a given. But the gap in between like film releases is throwing me off.
The blip. It's the blip.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good excuse they have built in for why movies that took place in the same year that they came out have like a big gap in between them. But anyway.
Yeah. Or why Tom Holland's still playing a 17-year-old.
Who's in high school well, I guess it's still 25 years after whenever Endgame came out. I forget.
Oh, shoot. That's a big case of Racebending that I think we touched upon is Zendaya's character.
Yeah, MJ.
As MJ. Yeah. Even though technically it's not, you know, Mary Jane Watson. What's her name? Like MJ Jones, I think, right? Michelle Jones.
I had no idea they actually said her name.
I think they said it once, and then after that, she was like, "Just call me MJ," and then we just called her MJ. We did what she said, but but yeah, I do remember, like you said, there was always gonna be so-called fans being like, "Mary Jane's a redhead white girl. Why do you have Zendaya?" And just like, why can't New York high school be more diverse than they showed in the comics? That's what I always appreciate about Spider-Man Homecoming, that they actually made the high school look like a high school that would be in like New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone wasn't like fucking roided out. They were like all 20-year-olds.
You talking about Joe, the guy who played Flash in like the Tobey Maguire movie, Joe Manganiello?
Yeah.
It's
like, dude, you look.
Tobey Maguire ones. Everyone looks like they were post-college age.
They straight up look 30.
Yeah.
Very Power Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they did do well with casting that movie, and I do think you are right. The twist of the Vulture being Liz's dad was definitely a good twist, and I think she's not the only character that was like race bent from her original comics as well. Even in a different, even her same character name, a different adaptation was race bent to be Hispanic in Spectacular Spider-Man as well.
Yeah, she was Puerto Rican, right?
Puerto Rican, okay.
She was Puerto Rican descent. Yeah. And I think that's also sometimes what makes race bending okay is, unfortunately, white gets treated as the default. So in a lot of stories where it's white characters or being portrayed, yeah, they might have good stories, but there's not a lot that has to do with their race, and nor does there always have to be. But by adding like a racial aspect, like you said, for Spectacular Spider-Man with Liz Allen and then her brother,
Molten
Mark.
Man.
Yeah, Molten Man, Mark. Sometimes they would speak Spanish to each other, right? Or they would call each other, or that little tidbit that they are biracial and they are bilingual just adds like just a little bit to their characters, which makes it more interesting. It makes it cool, and also increased representation for any other like bilingual or biracial or characters.
Yeah, like, and there's nothing in their background, to my knowledge, that means that they have to be a Caucasian character.
No,
like if Moira McTaggart isn't like Scottish, that might be a problem.
Yeah.
Although I guess she wasn't in.
No, she wasn't. She was American, right? They made her an American.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
I guess did her background play into that movie, into her story?
They made her like a CIA agent. Was Banshee Irish either in First Class?
I don't know, but I think Rain was supposed to be Scottish in New Mutants.
She was, I think.
I think
she actually had an accent. She actually had an accent.
Yeah.
So, speaking of New Mutants, I actually enjoyed it. I know a lot of people didn't. I think I also agree it would have been better as a TV series than a movie. But yeah, like that's a case where they kept her heritage. I think that's the thing when it comes to like whitewashing characters. Usually, if you change it to like your typical like white American, you're not really adding anything to the story. I feel like changing, like you said, Moira McTaggart to Scottish to American does kind of take away like that heritage a little bit and backstory. But that's like one of the few examples, or that is an example.
So, do the same rules apply when it comes to voice acting?
That's hard.
I feel like we kind of touched base on it in our previous episodes, where it like depends and is kind of a little more acceptable. Joe and I were kind of discussing this earlier too, where we were like, Phil Lamar was talking about things later on. He was like, what did you say, Joe? Like it was during the time, it was like not as available for people
like an Asian
Yeah.
actors. Yeah, not that would have been suited for Jack anyway. Right, in case of
Yeah.
Samurai Jack. Yeah, basically, it's harder. It was harder to get like a good like acting pool for Samurai Jack. So they went Phil Lamar, who did a great job. But I think Phil Lamar himself has said like, it's different from when you cast like a white person playing a black character, for example. Then because that's literally taking away opportunity because there is such a huge pool of white actors. It's much easier for a white actor to get voice acting roles than it is for people of color. So I think that's why it was a little more acceptable for Phil Lamar to be playing Jack or to be playing a lot of white characters, which he does. Or hell, like a lot of the characters from the Boondocks was voiced by like Samuel L. Jackson as Onceler or Onceler's kids, right?
Rummy or whatever.
Yeah, Rummy.
Yeah.
So, which gave us a great scene when Riley kept saying, "What country are you from? What? I don't know heard of what they speak English and what motherfucker do you speak it?"
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I feel as long as like the opportunities are still being made available to people of color, it's different. That's what changes the rules a little bit. Which doesn't sound fair, but you know what? Neither is racism. So,
Someone clip that.
I was gonna say, like nowadays, I guess since the pool's bigger, then I guess it would make more sense to have like an Asian person be Samurai Jack, or where like identity is kind of important to like maybe relate the experiences so they can like maybe perform like as a better voice actor. Then that would make
more
sense.
Sincerity,
like where it's like super 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 tied into the story, but otherwise I feel like it's a little more open because of like all the various other reasons we said that it would make sense when it's live action.
Because live action, you see the character, so it's harder. But voice, if you sound the part, that's when you can really showcase your acting skills, right? And if you want to think of like a good like modern example, think of Steven Yeun, who's played Mark in Invincible, and I forgot his name, but he played an Asian character as well in Voltron. But he also played a white character in Troll Hunters. So it's like it's a little different. And as far as we can tell, like he did the Troll Hunters character really well. It was actually a pretty well fleshed out like bully character who actually ends up becoming a hero. So like that's a good example of like it doesn't matter so much for like the white character he was playing, but it does matter that a character of Asian descent does get played by an Asian character, even if it's the same actor. So sorry, Daryl, you're muted.
Yep. So I won't lie, for a good like couple minutes there, I was trying to think of off the top of my head Asian voice actors that didn't do anime. Because I used to be like a big listener to Talking Tunes, was like a podcast that had a lot of like voice actors. This is talking about the craft, like Tara Strong and Rob. Well, I mean, the host was Rob Paulson, who's like Twitter handle is Yakko Pinky. If you can think of the couple of the roles that he's done, and just trying to like think back in my head, like the guest list of like who they had, and like couldn't really think of anybody until you said Steven Yeun, right? Yeah, and he was also Lil Kato in Final Space. Really good role. So yeah, need a bigger acting pool.
Just a little bigger. Not to say, like I said, I feel like there is a little more flexibility with voice acting because you just reminded me of the movie Kubo and the Two Strings.
Oh.
And both his mother and father, the monkey and the beetle, they were played by Scarlett Johansson, sorry. We were talking about her earlier, it's stuck in my head. Charlize Theron and Matthew McConaughey. And they did a good job. I'm not gonna lie, they did a really good job. So it's like, in terms of like representation, like I said, the visual kind of hits harder. It's a little more important because you literally see the character. But when it's animated, it's like the character could be anything you want it to be. So,
yeah. Do you say he did a all right job?
If you're gonna do it right, you gotta say it with that Texas twang. All right.
Oh no. Okay.
I feel like it also kind of falls in the realm of like dubbing, like when you dub like a regular live action movie in different languages, like it ends up, I feel like, almost being in that category where it's just like, all right, if you get the expression and the capture of the original source like across, then that's more important, I think, to fleshing out the story, because visually you probably associate the characters with whatever you're seeing visually versus like what you hear.
Yeah, I think Phil Lamar himself said there's like no race when it comes to voice. When he talks about like race, we're talking about like the career opportunities versus the actual character voice. And like, I think
it's the same way. There's no like orange people that can be cast as Starfire.
Yeah.
You can't really cast like sentient rats as Pinky the Brain. So yeah, I can see that.
You find the actors who can do it well. Yeah.
And make sure there's opportunities for any actor that can come in and do the role.
Yeah.
So any final thoughts anybody wants to give to the audience before we sign off? Because I feel like we've spoken a good amount about the issue.
None for me.
No. I'd like the audience to have their own takeaway.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening to our discussion on whitewashing, racebending, Avatar, and all those fun stuff.
There is no movie in Ba Sing Se.
Oh, man. So if you guys have any thoughts on tonight's topic on racebending and whitewashing, definitely leave it in the comments. And leave it anywhere you want to get in touch with us. Just a heads up, we're going to be taking a break for the holiday season. So we will be back in 2022 with some new episodes. But also keep an eye out on the feed for a possible survey. We definitely want to get you guys' input on the show, because we've made some changes over this past year, and I want to make sure we start off on 2022 on the good foot. So keep an eye out. We're going to update the feed with that.
Don't be afraid to leave any criticisms and see what we could do better, except for me, because I am perfect.
Oh, man.
Why you laughing, huh?
So if you want to correct Joe's lies, please. Oh, man. But seriously, y'all, hope you enjoy the rest of the year. Hope 2021 ends well for you guys. And hopefully you'll stay subscribed up until 2022 when we come back. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in to Geeks Represent. If you enjoyed the discussion, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts can be found. If you want to add to the discussion, please visit geeksrepresent.com. Thanks for listening and sharing with your friends.